What is going on, YouTube? Levi Adams here with Team TC, and there are 809 Pokemon in the Pokemon franchise. Every single one of them is someone's favorite, so I wanted to ask the question, can we use them in the TCG? Today we're going to be continuing our look at every single fully evolved Pokemon and how they stack up in the Pokemon TCG standard and expanded metagames. Welcome back to Dex Decks. Alrighty guys, we got our PowerPoint open and we're going to be taking our look at Raticate, both the Alolan form and the Kanto form. Now, with these two forms, it's kind of interesting just because the Alolan form is actually the only form we have in the standard format right now, and the Kanto form is typically better just because of the gimmick that it has. We'll get a little bit more into that once we talk about the Kanto form, but let's take a look at our Raticate that we have in the standard format right now. Alolan Raticate GX with 200 HP is very interesting just because it has attacks for 0 energy. You see that energy symbol in line with Chuck Away, and that means that it attacks for 0 energy, which is super duper cool. You discard you discard 2 cards from your hand, and this attack does 40 damage times the amount of cards you discard. This is really, really cool. Being a dark type Pokemon, you actually hit perfect numbers to knock out like Giratina, which is really, really cool. Giratina being a nice non-GX attacker, probably one of the best non-GX attackers we have in standard right now. And just being able to do clean damage for 0 energy is nice. You knock out all evolving basics as well as some evolving stage 1s, which is pretty cool. And having an attack for 0 energy is just nice because it means you can combo it with other things that attack for actual energy. Item Maniac is a neat GX attack. The fact that it costs 0 energy is also really, really good. And you search your deck for 6 item cards. This helps you search out primarily things like Custom Catcher, cards that you need 2 of in order for them to work, or just other consistency cards such as Cherish Ball and Pokegear, whatever you need to search your deck for added consistency. And it's really, really nice. It's a good turn 2 option if your opponent is setting up slow. Looking at the strengths of this deck, we're going to mention this with every single GX Pokemon, and that is the fact that it's searchable via Cherish Ball. Searching is kind of hard in standard, and if you are searchable via Cherish Ball or any of the other search cards, then that is a plus in my book. A free attack means that you don't need energy in your deck. We do actually play energy in our Alolan Raticate deck, but that is for a very specific reason. But this also means that you can pair it with other Pokemon that do need energy to attack, and just use them to as your energy of choice. You could pair it with a fighting type Pokemon, you could pair it with water type Pokemon, you could pair it with fire type Pokemon, take advantage of Welder maybe, I don't know. The choices are honestly endless. You attack for 0 energy, and hitting dark is a very niche weakness, but it's kind of a nice weakness to hit in all honesty. So this being said, speaking about weaknesses, let's go ahead and look at the weaknesses of Alolan Raticate. You max out at 80 damage. 80 damage is incredibly low. That's a 2-hit KO on Dedenne GX, which is currently the GX Pokemon with the lowest amount of HP in the game. That's super bad that you have to 2-hit KO it. That is 2 turns. Dedenne won't be in the active for 2 turns. It probably won't even be in the active for 1 turn, so that sucks. Discarding your resources can be rough. We get around this in our deck because we kind of build our deck to constantly recycle resources and discard them. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but it can be tough. And you essentially 1 to 2 hit KO, or you get 1 to 2 hit KO'd by everything in the game. 200 HP used to be high, but it's not really that high anymore, which is a little rough, but what can you do? So moving on to Kanto Raticate, we have an interesting option primarily in Raticate Break. So with Raticate Break, it has an attack called Super Fang, its signature attack from the video games, that puts damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon until it has 10 HP remaining. This can be comboed with things like Poison and Burn to knock out any Pokemon in the game, which as we saw in the Beedrill video is super duper fun. The Raticate we have that isn't the break has an ability called Antibodies, which means that it can't be affected by special conditions. I think this is one of the best Raticates we have. There is another Raticate that does have Super Fang, I just don't think it combos as well with the strategy that we have set up in our current deck. But I'll leave that up for you to decide whether or not you want to play that Raticate. If you want to research into Raticate a little bit more, feel free, of course. Now, looking at the strengths of this deck is actually like weirdly strong, which is super duper cool. Expanded, there are so many ways to inflict poison between Koga's Trap and Hypnotoxic Legazer. There's an Argydos with an ability that does it. There's so many ways to do poison damage, and that's super duper awesome. That comboing with this attack means that you can KO literally anything in the game. Your Raticate has Free Retreat, and Free Retreat is just always nice just for Guzma plays, for switching plays, for escape rope options, for your Pokemon just got knocked out, so what do you do next? It's really, really good, really, really fun, really, really nice. You have nice options for Rattata, which is really, really weird, but we've kind of seen that there's always a best option for an evolving basic, and there are multiple good options for Rattata, which is, it's just nice to have, honestly. Having options to evolve from is really, really good. You're searchable via Level Ball, which is always nice. It's just a free search of a Pokemon 90 HP or less. That's what Level Ball does. So you can search out your Rattatas, your Raticates for essentially free, which is super duper nice. Being a single prize attacker means your prize trade is awesome. And there are multiple different ways that this deck can be run. This is just one way to run Raticate. There are honestly multiple different decks, but I wasn't super enthused to do Raticate, so we just have the one, in all honesty. So looking at the weaknesses, you max out at 110 HP. Sorry about that, hit the spacebar too quickly. You max out at 110 HP, which means you're super easy to KO. Being a break means you're a stage 2, and as we have learned throughout this series, being a stage 2 means you're inherently inconsistent. The strategy is super gimmicky at best, but that doesn't mean it's not fun. It's just a gimmick. It's not like you're not just doing raw damage. You have to knock them down to 10 and poison them. You can get it off really consistently, but that doesn't always mean that you win. It's a gimmick. You have an uphill non-GX matchup as well. It's not impossible, but it's definitely still hard. It's just the prize trade thing. You're constantly trying to KO them first. They're constantly trying to KO you first. You're trying to evolve all the way up into a stage 2, which you can't use Rare Candy for. That's another important thing about the break, is that you can't Rare Candy Rattata into Raticate break. So it's not like a normal stage 2, which kind of sucks. But like I said, it's not impossible, but it is hard. So taking a look at our decks, we have the Alolan Raticate deck. This deck centers around the Lapras that was released in Unified Minds, as well as Misty's Favor. Misty's Favor lets you search for 3 supporter cards and put them in your hand. It's a decent supporter card. It's not the best. But when comboed with Lapras, which allows you to put 2 Misty's Favor from your discard pile into your hand, means that you can constantly recycle your Misty's Favor. If you don't see where we're going here, you have 2 Misty's Favor in the discard pile at any given time and 2 Lapras on your board, meaning that you always have the 2 cards to discard. You're not wasting resources, and you always have fuel for Raticate's attack. There aren't ways to really negate abilities in the standard format, so this strategy often goes off without a hitch. Super duper nice. Every other card is pretty much there for consistency. We play Martial Arts Dojo and Fighting Energy as a way of boosting our damage. Martial Arts Dojo, if your Pokemon has a basic Fighting Energy attached, boosts their damage by 10. If you're behind on prizes, it boosts it by 40. This helps us knock out Pokemon like Volcanion and Zapdos, these basics that kind of just get out of our damage range, out of that 80 HP. And the just boost by 10 helps us knock out things like Malamar, as well as other basic Pokemon with 90 HP, and other stage 1 Pokemon with 90 HP, other support Pokemon and such. It's honestly really nice. I think it's a really interesting tech, and since you can afford to play the energy anyway, I just don't see why not. Moving on to the expanded deck, playing a 4-4-3 line of Raticate break, we're choosing the Rattata from Evolutions, just because it discards a tool card off of your opponent's active Pokemon. Get rid of things like Fighting Fury Belt, get rid of things like Focus Sash, not that literally any of those cards matter, because you KO literally everything, but it's just kind of neat, primarily for things like Floatstone and stuff. 1 copy of Shaman and 1 copy of Lele. The rest is pretty standard as far as my expanded deck lists go. We are playing 1 copy of Koga's Trap. I think it's a nice option because Ariados can't poison grass-type Pokemon. So if your opponent is playing a grass-type deck, then if you get your Koga's Trap activated, then you can just go from there and just Super Fang and use the supporter instead. So that's kind of how you get around grass types with this deck. Other than that, energy count, I like the energy count. 2 triple acceleration and 4 DCE seems really, really nice in my personal opinion, especially with 2 special charge. It's honestly a really consistent deck and super duper fun. Well, not super duper fun, I don't know. It's neat. I like it. So getting into my thoughts about these decks, with the Alolan Raticate deck, I give it a 3 out of 7 in enjoyment and a 2 out of 7 in viability. The reason I rate it so low is just kind of due to the fact that it's honestly not that fun, because you lose a lot. Like, winning isn't everything, but it's a big part of having a good time in this game, I'm not gonna lie. Some games, when they're really, really close, it can be super duper fun, but games are not close with this deck. The only reason I give it a 2 out of 7 in viability is because you hard counter Giratina. Because you are hitting Giratina for weakness, as well as the way that we've built our deck, you're able to knock out Malamars using the Fighting Dojo and Fighting Energy combo. That is pretty much the sole reason we play it, is so that we can target down Malamars. But other than that, you lose to pretty much everything else in the format. Sure, you set up quickly, but that doesn't matter when things like Pikachu and Zekrom can come in and OHKO you with their attacks and just absolutely obliterate your soul. So with the Break deck, I give it a 4 out of 7 in enjoyment and a 3 out of 7 in viability. I would probably enjoy the deck more if I liked Raticate more as a Pokemon, but I'm honestly just like not super thrilled about Raticate. I think it's super fun. KOing anything is sick. It's just like, in the game that we get with this deck, we knock out a Mewtwo tag team. Imagine in Pokemon the first movie if you knock out, or if Mew and Mewtwo, their big conflict, was stopped by Eradicate. That is essentially what this deck does, and I think it's super duper sick. Just this golden Raticate is like, it is Joey's Rattata. It's in the top percentage of Rattatas. It's awesome. And for that regard, you could probably rank it higher in enjoyment for like meme value. And in terms of viability, it's, you know, it's a gimmicky strategy, but it's something that can consistently win. And as long as your opponent isn't ready for it, then you can win super duper easily. If you're in a GX matchup or a tag team matchups are just like no brainer, you win as long as you set up. So, and this deck doesn't really brick that often. You have a lot of search options, you like a good supporter count. It's really, really good, especially with a Tech Lieutenant Surge to let you get off multiple supporters in one turn. It's really, really nice. All this being said, let me go ahead and get into the games, and I can show you just exactly how these decks operate at their best. Alrighty, getting into the first game, we are going to be playing the Alolan Raticate deck, and we start out with an Alolan Rattata and our Pokemon Fan Club. This allows us to search out one of our Laprases as well as a Jirachi, which is just going to allow us to continue our setup. We're going to attach a skateboard to our Rattata and retreat into Jirachi, and use Jirachi to Stellar Wish for a Cherish Ball. This allows us to get a Alolan Raticate GX for next turn. We have a pretty decent setup with the Fighting Dojo in hand. We do get Judged, but that's not going to inhibit us too much, as we also have an Escape Board to attach to our Jirachi. We're able to evolve into Alolan Raticate as well as Cynthia, and you're going to be able to see the Misty's Favor strategy come into play here, as we have 2 in the discard pile, I believe, after this turn. And we're just going to be able to use our 2 Laprases to constantly recycle them. Our opponent did have a spell tag attached to the Mew, and after the Psi Power, they were able to take a knockout on Jirachi, but it's pretty okay just because of the fact that we don't really need the setup anymore. We have our Alolan Raticate in the active. We draw into a Rattata, which is honestly awesome. And we're going to use one of our Misty's Favor just to kind of search our deck. For a Fan Club as well as Cynthia, this gives us draw support as well as Pokemon Search for the following turns. We get Reset Stamped, which is not the end of the world. We draw into some other cards. We have 3 Laprases. This just guarantees if one gets knocked out, we still have 2 on the board. And we use another Chuck Away knockout. Now, this strategy is honestly pretty cool, and I didn't give it as much credit as I wish I did in the slideshow. I just think it's super neat to constantly recycle the supporters, which is pretty dope. So we're able to use Viridian Forest to search out fighting energies, just making sure that we have our Raticate set up for as much as possible. And we're going to take another knockout here, going down to 2 prizes. Now, it's at this point in the game where the game's honestly getting kind of close. Our opponent is going to be able to sort of manipulate the prizes in a way where they're going to be able to take a knockout on our Alolan Raticate eventually. Or no, they do take this knockout, and they set up their board in a way after I knock out this Giratina, where if I knock out their next Pokemon, they'll be able to knock out our Alolan Raticate and our Jirachi using a spell tag. I think that they kind of misplayed in a bit of a regard, because they should have just been attacking with Necrozmas in this matchup just because they have them. So this turn, I actually take the turn to protect my board as much as possible, and we're just digging for custom catchers here. Unfortunately, we aggro bike one of our custom catchers into the discard pile and get one of them into hand. We have game next turn. We will be able to search out our custom catcher. It is the last card in deck, and we're going to be able to search out Alolan Raticate as well as get custom catcher and custom catcher a Giratina for the game, which is awesome. Getting into the next game here, we're going to be using our expanded deck list, and we of course get a mulligan start. Our opponent is going to be playing probably a poor man's Mewtwo box seen in the Pokemon World Championships, except just kind of suited for expanded. I say poor man's just because it's not the best built deck in the world, but again, that's always okay because our decks are never top tier either. So we're going to go ahead and use Energy Lotto and just fail it, just so that we can draw more cards off of our Lily. We're playing Lily in this deck as opposed to Sycamore, just because I always found that I never wanted to discard cards. So Lily just seemed like a nice sort of in-between between the two. Our opponent is setting up their Mewtwo Mew. They have all sorts of Pokemon coming down on the bench, and they're just going to be able to take a few knockouts. You see that they actually do take quite a few knockouts, and the game's looking a little dicey, but I've got plenty of tricks up my sleeve. We evolve into Raticate, and I want to attach the triple acceleration energy, and I also don't. I just really want to draw cards here. So we're just kind of thinning our hand down as much as possible, and it's unfortunate, but I kind of just have to put something up to get KO'd. We don't have any way of setting up poison outside of Koga's Trap, which is a little bit brutal, and also our Raticate is kind of just chilling. Next turn is the turn when I believe we start to make our turnaround, but our opponent has a Mewtwo Mew with 4 energy attached, and they're just going to be able to keep on rocking and rolling here. We evolve into another Raticate, and we're going to go ahead and shuffle back our triple acceleration energy, and we're going to go ahead and use Battle Compressor to send Lieutenant Surge among some other supporter cards to the discard pile. We're able to use Dirty Shock, which is Raticate's attack, not the Break's attack, but Raticate's attack to poison our opponent. If they had any tool cards attached, then we would be able to get rid of those. And we just have a single lone Raticate. How is this Raticate going to win? Well, we evolve it. We're going to special charge as well as use Lieutenant Surge. We actually don't special charge. So we use Lieutenant Surge to give us 3 supporter cards this turn, and we hit a Rescue Stretcher, which is lovely. We're going to shovel 2 Rattata and a Raticate back into the deck, and using Level Ball as well as Ultra Ball, we're going to be able to set up our board just nice and clean, kind of get our Rattata set up back again, once again. And we're going to be able to use our second N for the turn, just kind of making sure that we can get set up. We attach triple acceleration energy just because I don't feel like losing a DCE next turn if I don't have to. And we're able to knock out this Mewtwo Mew. Now my opponent promotes a Charizard. They're going to be able to attach a fire energy to it. And I believe they just try and stall for a little bit using the Dawnwing's Necrozma invasion ability and then retreating into the type Null. But they make the mistake of benching a Muck Alolan Muck tag team. And that is where they lose the game, just due to the fact that I have a Guzma in hand. I have the ability to search out an Ariados to poison the Muck, and that is going to go ahead and be the game. We almost misplay and get Eradicate. We're going to go ahead and retreat into our Ariados so that we can Guzma the Muck Alolan Muck and put our Eradicate in the active. And then we're just going to take a knockout with Super Fang and the poison, and that is the game. That is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know which deck you prefer in the comment section down below, and let me know which Raticate you prefer in the comment section down below too. Next episode is going to be on Fearow, so look forward to that. Until next time, my name is Levi Adams with Team TC, and I'll see you guys then.
Hey everyone, this is Ash Ketchum. Thanks for watching Team TC. Make sure to subscribe and become part of the team, and join us on our journey to become Pokemon Masters. Ha!